Welcome back, everyone, to Chatooine. I'm your host, StarWarsOnly, joined with Darth Daddy Lunga and the Goldman. Here on Chatooine, we talk about topics in the fandom, simply chat about Star Wars. So if you have any questions for us, make sure to leave them in the live chat or send a super chat question so you can be guaranteed an answer to your question before the show is over. And this week's a fun week. The last episode of The Mandalorian, Chapter 12, The Siege, is out, and we talk about all the juicy details from this action-packed episode. And we also got the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. We'll talk about that a little later. And we have a little bit more news about the Boba Fett series, and a familiar character is appearing in the Bad Batch series. All that news and more here on Chatooine. All right, so I think this is probably going to be one of my favorite episodes for us because we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You there?
Are we there? Yeah, did we lose something? Are you there?
That last episode of the man, that might be me thing. Sorry.
Oh,
hey, you're lagging.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's a me thing. It's my internet. New location, new apartment doesn't do me well sometimes. Yeah. But all I was gonna say is that last week we were talking about Ahsoka, and I feel like this episode that kind of took a back seat for me. I really didn't focus or think about Ahsoka too much during this episode. So just want to hear what you guys think. What were your thoughts on the most recent episode? I'll give it to you first, Lunga.
I watched your video on it. You gave it much high praise this episode. Mine's not as high as yours. That doesn't mean it. I don't think it did what it needed to do. It moved the plot forward like it wanted to. It gave us a lot of new information, and I think it was a good episode as far as moving the plot along. But there was a lot. I wouldn't call it. I mean, I gave I'll give my ranking later, but it wasn't as high as you felt it was.
Yeah, it's one of the few episodes I've given 3 other episodes on The Mandalorian so far 10 out of 10s, and all of those were from season 1, chapter 3 and 7 from Deborah Chow, and then I think chapter 8 from Taika Waititi, and that one I actually think I gave like a 9.75 because I normally don't like giving perfect scores, but I gave this one a perfect score. I really did think this was a perfect episode of The Mandalorian, simply for me because it had the adventure that I wanted. It had like a lot of plot details that made me interested in what was going to happen next. I just truly did enjoy it. But Goldman, what are your thoughts on it?
I definitely thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I still think when it comes to this season, the Marshal chapter 9 was my favorite, but this is probably number 2. Mm-hmm. One thing I loved about this episode, a lot of people were going to assume it would be, I hate to say filler, but something close to it, like the second episode was of this season, but it really wasn't because we got a lot of juicy information here. That because we have no clue really where the season's going, because as we talked about last week, all the trailers, like it's all the first 4 episodes, so we have no clue what's going to happen other than that he'll meet Ahsoka presumably. So we really got to see where the episode is going with the dark troopers and a little bit with the cloning. Is it Snoke? We'll get into that. But I think I just loved it because it was a lot of fun. The action was great. I liked when they went back to Navarro, how different it was. I wasn't expecting it to be like when I saw the school, that really surprised me. Also, I thought the humor in this episode was really good too. The opening sequence with the wires, I loved that. That just I thought was really funny. When Baby Yoda used the Force to get the blue cookies, that was really funny. And one thing that's really interesting, I think this is the episode that has Mando the least because there's a good portion of the second half up until the end that Mando isn't in it because he runs off to go find Baby Yoda, and then we follow the 3 of them escaping. So yeah, I think it was really interesting how the show didn't feel like it lost anything without Mando. I was thoroughly enjoying the other three characters, especially the blue guy, because he was kind of annoying when we first saw him, and here he was a little more funny. So yeah, there was just this episode was a lot of fun. We got to see where the season's gonna go, and last season I didn't feel this way, but right now I really can't wait for the next episode. Last season I was like, okay, it's good, but I can wait. Now I'm like, I want to see the next episode as soon as I can.
Yeah, this has me truly staying up every night to see what happens immediately. And I like your point, Goldman, about how like last season, I think chapter 4, the next episode after this, for last season, we got the one by. It's ironic because episode 5 of each of them is going to be from Dave Filoni. Chapter 5 was the one where they went back to Tatooine. A lot of people did not like that episode. I would argue it's one of the worst in the series, and so that gave me a little bit of skepticism towards Dave Filoni directing and writing another episode. But the next one he's writing and directing is going to be the one about Ahsoka, and it's called The Jedi. But I like what you said about this one. Without Mando, it didn't feel too bad, and it didn't feel like we were missing anything. But I think one of the reasons we didn't see Mando so much is I don't know if you guys heard, I have an inside source who said that Pedro Pascal walked off set because he didn't want to wear the helmet anymore, and this is where the contract negotiation.
Well, it's obvious. I mean, when he lifted his helmet to drink, you could tell that was not his chin. It was someone else's chin entirely. It was very pale. It wasn't him.
Yeah, that controversy is coming back and making the rounds again. I heard that today. Someone, I think it was Bounding into Comics or something like that is the name, and they were like, "Yeah, there's a rumor from some sources about
sources."
Yeah, and I was like, "All right, well, who are they reporting this from?" And of course, it's the Doomcock saying that Pedro Pascal. Oh, and Grace Randolph, who also said that Pedro Pascal did not want to play the Mandalorian anymore. But of course, he's already debunked this. I think on Twitter the past week. Can't remember what it was about. Oh no, that was something else. He was poking fun at Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, friend of mine. But I did think that was an interesting little back and forth they had. But still, I like this episode. I think it really builds my hype for what's next. And we of course had the Dark Troopers that were there. We had the clones that they walked into. That's why for me this felt like a really good episode. Is that it changed the narrative of, to me, Ahsoka Tano, all these cameos with Bo-Katan and all these other characters, they're kind of the B plot to the story. Mm-hmm. The A plot is what's happening with Mando, the child, all these other people, and I really like that. And Lunga's got a better image.
Give me a little high contrast here.
Yeah, he calls these Snokes.
I mean, look at. There's a scar right there. It's that same creepy collarbone and shoulder. You got the big brow ridge here. It's a Snoke. I'm not saying it is Snoke, but because there was multiple clones, obviously, as we saw in the sequels. But it's a Snoke.
I do not think this is related to Snoke as much as I want it to be. I think it's something I just can't believe until I see it. But I don't think they're going to tie it in to Snoke and or Palpatine. Also, I mean, it was kind of explained that Palpatine made Snoke on Exegol. The lore is a little confusing with how Snoke and Palpatine are a thing in The Rise of Skywalker, but I'm still not 100% sold.
Science and Sith alchemy. It had to start somewhere. It had to start somewhere.
The Sith knew, remember?
Yeah,
it had to start somewhere. Golden.
One thing I thought was really interesting, and I didn't notice this at first, but I watched it the second time. I noticed it. I like how they're basically talking about injecting Baby Yoda's blood into whatever this is. And they say the M count.
Yeah, I like that part.
I thought it was funny. It's like
count.
Because that's basically the midichlorians. So they just don't want to say it. It's like, we
can't say the M word.
We can't say the M word, so we'll just say M count. I don't know. That gave me a good chuckle. But we are getting into some really science fiction-y stuff here. Because to me, Star Wars has always been fantasy, but the concept of injecting a Force sensitive's blood into another organism to make it Force sensitive, that's really science fiction-y. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just we're really diving deep into something we haven't seen on the big or small screen before. It's been in the expanded universe, and I'm not sure if it's in the canon that people have done that. I think people tried with Grievous before back in the day, but it's very interesting where this is going to go. And I know I repeated this last week, but I'm so excited that I just have no clue what's going to happen throughout these last 4 episodes, other than that we'll see Ahsoka in probably next week's episode.
Well, it does build a lot of intrigue on what's happening next. I mean, we can probably take a look at that clip that we have, that 1 minute special look where literally everything in that we have already seen now. Yep. And so the next 4 episodes are going to be footage, pictures, content we have yet to see. And all 3 of us know what's happening next. So the next episode is reportedly titled The Jedi. It has a 57-minute runtime, so I think it's going to be the longest runtime that we've had.
Double episode.
Yeah, I mean, basically. And so the next 4 episodes, that the next one we know was kind of going to happen. He's going to run into Ahsoka. Don't know how that's going to go for them though. And then after that, who's to say? We have the Dark Trooper stuff that we kind of got a hint at the end of this episode, and yeah, this is a really good image of them because even in the actual episode, you didn't get to see that much of it, but they look intimidating. And this is something, Lunga, you were talking about this on your channel this past week about how Jon Favreau is using Night Seal Republic to kind of bring it into the Mandalorian as canon, and this is another example of that because the Dark Troopers are something that were in the Legends. Yeah.
Another video game thing. He seems like he's drawing more from video games than like books and novelizations. Because these are, from the looks of it and the fact that you're talking about test subjects and M counts, I think it's all playing into it. And these are basically what you're talking about is Phase 0 Dark Troopers, which were poor man Darth Vaders.
Yeah. So
pardon me, I have no clue what a Dark Trooper is. Like I did some research. Is it a droid? Is it an actual person? Explain that to me.
Yeah, there's different phases, and Star Wars only doesn't do this too much, but I do not mind bringing up source material to read for people to understand it, because sometimes it's just easier that way. But in Wikipedia, the Fandom Wikipedia on it, that what they talk about with the Phase 0, they were basically here we go. Phase 0 Dark Troopers were created in the early years of the Empire to deal with the shortage of experienced troops. So this is Galactic Empire time. So it's like right after Revenge of the Sith.
And this is Legends, correct?
This is Legends because it's Battlefront.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, it's from the games. But it is Legends, yeah. But they returned aged veterans of the Clone Wars. So basically, they took a bunch of clone troopers in peak conditions, and their limbs and organs were removed and replaced with cybernetics, using much of the same technology to transform Darth Vader. In some cases, over 70% of the clone's body was replaced. Within years of combat experience, cybernetic enhancements, the units that did make it into the field were undeniably effective. And at the height of Project Dark Troopers were split into specialized classes.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's like 4 phases of Dark Troopers, but these are the ones that seem like it's closest to what's going on. Because they're actually kind of hybrids. There's cloning involved, and stuff like that. And the 2 guys standing at the console that they blasted when they were getting the information had the Camino patch. So they're
I noticed that.
Yeah, and there was engineers and Kaminoan scientists on his ship with him. Oh, and that was the other thing too. Remember that card we showed? That was his flagship.
I'll be honest with you, that thing was ugly when it came into view.
It looked like the first thing. It's ugly design, but it looked really good in terms of the effects. Like it looked like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a model. Like it did look. The design wasn't great, but it looked really real to me.
But there's multiple parts moving here. He's creating these Dark Troopers. They say in that if you listen to the accessibility for blind people thing where it reads out the description of the scene, it says black armor similar to Moff Gideon's. So he's using similar armor to his. We're using Death Troopers. He's also at the same time we hear a report from the doctor about the M count and the blood from the child, and test subjects have died from it, and we're looking at them. I'm thinking they're mixing a lot of stuff here. They're taking these. I think he's trying to make Force sensitive Dark Troopers. That's what I think he's trying to make. And I think this, I still believe, I know you say you don't think this, Goldman, but I think he is still part of what is going to become the First Order. He is part of this project that Palpatine had set into place, but he's also doing stuff on his own to solidify his own power. And this is like his own little deal that he's doing with these Dark Troopers.
I can see that. I think he's using whatever it is when it comes to the Force to create these Force sensitive Dark Troopers, and just he knows that the Force is extremely powerful, and it's clear that people like even Mando, Cara Dune, and Grief Karga don't really know that. So
I think he's an Inquisitor, dude.
Yeah,
no Moffs wore black like this.
I would hope he's an Inquisitor, just because I think that would be a nice tie-in to Rebels, and this show so far seems to tie in a lot of different things. I don't think I'm kind of halfway with you there, Lunga. I think he is kind of unintentionally going to be part of Palpatine bringing back Snoke in some way. But what I would say is that I don't think we're ever going to get that revelation in the series. I don't think like at the end of season 4, whenever this show ends, the clones that they're working on and all that stuff, like that technology is going to be used for Palpatine to bring back, himself or clone Snoke. I just think that when the First Order becomes what it is, Palpatine's like, all right, cool, I have this technology now that I'm going to use to make Snoke somehow, some way. What do you think about it, Goldman?
That's definitely possible. The one line that definitely lays credence to the notion of it tying to the First Order was when that Imperial woman was talking to the mechanic from Navarro, and she said something like, "You will be rewarded in the new era."
Mm-hmm.
I thought that line was really interesting. I'm assuming the new era implies whenever what the First Order will become rises, which is like 25 years after this, so that mechanic's gonna have to wait a long time.
Yeah, but the First Order started around this time. The birth of the First Order started way back in, and I just read the Aftermath novel, the first one. I still got to read the other two, and in that one you see the beginning of it, and that one literally picks up like in the year after Endor.
Yeah.
So you see these moths are scattered. They're trying to solidify power. There's vacuums and all this other stuff. So yeah, I think like you said, Star Wars Only. I think all this stuff is going to be assimilated into what Palpatine's plan is. But yeah, in Moff Gideon, how he's working on his own when it comes to these Dark Troopers.
I really like what Star Wars Only said about it's not going to necessarily be a direct connection to Snoke, because I doubt we'll get like a Snoke cameo or Andy Serkis back at some point. But it lays the foundation and kind of does some of the world building that the sequels severely lacked. Like, after Return of the Jedi, we see the Empire fall, and then in Force Awakens, there's a new organization. Like, it's a little weird. But in this show, we see, the Empire is still somewhat of a thing. They're clearly working on something. They're working on clones. So say if someone were to watch this chronologically, they watch The Mandalorian and say by the end, we get a lot more information about this cloning, but we don't know Snoke. So they watch the sequels, they go, okay. So when Palpatine says, I mean, Snoke, he got the technology that we The Mandalorian. So I really like that. It's kind of doing some of the world building that the sequels should have done.
There's this question in the comments that I'm actually wanted to hear your guys' take on. When the scientist was talking on that recording to Moff Gideon, he said something about we need more from the donor, and since it's 3 days old, I don't assume that as Baby Yoda. I don't think that's the child because I think they've already, that's not, I guess, what you would call a donor. So, do you guys think that there is someone in the Empire who is force sensitive that is giving out midichlorians, letting the Empire use their blood in order to make
I believe that line is Baby Yoda, because he says in there that he talks about the child and he couldn't draw enough blood from him, so they use what they had, and they're out of the donor's blood, and without another donor they won't be able to continue. The baby, if you listen to that line again, the donor is the child. That is the donor. They also, now the one thing is interesting, they talk about the volunteer. There's a volunteer apparently who's volunteering to be part of this to get this injection of blood. We don't know who that is. That's interesting. I want to know what's going on with this, because they name they specifically say the volunteer, and it seems like it's something important to me with that. But I think it is. They're talking about the child when they say that.
I think that this whole episode possibly disproves the notion that Moff Gideon is an Inquisitor, because the Inquisitors are force sensitive, and if they're desperate for midichlorians, why couldn't they just use Moff Gideon's, unless he's not strong enough, or they need someone who's I suppose. I guess we'll see. I still don't think Moff Gideon's an Inquisitor, but we'll see. I don't think I don't think he's force sensitive. I'm curious. I don't think the donor and Baby Yoda are the same thing, because they refer to Baby Yoda as the asset. So why wouldn't they just say the asset, unless they're calling Baby Yoda the donor and the asset?
Well, that was the asset when they were chasing it. As far as the doctor's concerned, he was the donor.
They still refer to him as the asset.
I don't know if they referred to him when they had. I think they referred to him a little bit when they had him. I don't know how it'll go with.
This was my second cameo, by the way, guys. This was my second cameo.
Jeans guy.
yeah, I was Jeans guy. They tried to cut me out, but I'm like, hell no, I'm staying in here. I paid off the editor, and they kept a little bit of me in there.
I like how a lot of people try to go after because I think this was what's his name, Carl Weathers, his directorial debut, and a lot of people were kind of harping on this scene and rolling their eyes at it, and I'm like, all right, it's a blooper. I'm sad that it happened. It's not that big of a deal. And he just kind of took it on the chin and was like, oh yeah, a bogey or something like that. It's not that big of a deal. I'm like, dude, this guy was in Rocky and lived through the 80s and 70s. You think you're gonna insult him with accidental blooper back here?
I mean, Game of Thrones had a Starbucks cup. It happens.
Yeah.
Do you think this guy, the Jeans guy, do you think he knows that's him?
Oh, he has to. He has to.
He's like, oh, that's me. That'd be pretty cool. Hey,
I wonder if he can get a check or royalties for it. And shout out to the lore master for watching. He says Gene's guy now going to become a character in the next Star Wars Lego skit. Probably will.
Why not? He can become the next prodigy that does no wrong.
He might actually be the chosen one that we didn't know about. I mean, how many times do you actually see someone wearing jeans? And you know what? Say what you will about The Mandalorian if you don't like it. This show has a lot of fashion going on. There was that Moncal from the last episode who literally had a J.C. Penney sweater on, and now we have a guy with jeans just chilling in the background. All right, this is the golden era
and a Casio watch.
A Casio watch, yeah. He's got fashion. He's got fashion.
You need people without Padme who's going to innovate in the Star Wars fashion industry.
Oh yeah, wear a different outfit every scene to sell more toys.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually Anakin's Force Ghost. It's his relaxed fit uniform.
Oh man, at least he's wearing a shirt this time. Yeah, he was the original like shirtless baddie or whatever you want to call him. But in terms of I guess the future of The Mandalorian, I think this episode set a really good precedent for it, and I think that I don't know. I hope that we get more Boba Fett in the future, just because I thought we were going to get him right after episode 1, and we didn't, and we don't know what's going to happen next. And we'll talk about a little more about Boba Fett in the next topic and like the little bit of news we have about his series. But what do you guys think is going to happen with like Grief Karga and Cara Dune? Do you think they're going to come back? Do you think it's going to really focus on them anymore? Like we'll see any more of them this season? Because now it kind of seems like their story could technically just be wrapped up. Like they seem fine on Navarro.
I don't think Cara Dune's story is over, because they kind of hinted at her rejoining the New Republic, you know, at the end when the New Republic guy talked about Alderaan and then gave her the medal. So I don't think her story is over. It's so weird because we have nothing to base it on, because we have no trailers. We don't know. I'm not sure if Mando would have any reason to go back to Navarro. Maybe something similar like the end of last season, where he's trying to recruit people. He's like, oh, I need help. Baby Yoda's actually taken captive, and I need people to help get him back. That's possible. I don't think I'm starting to think we won't see Boba Fett again, unless he left Tatooine and like followed Mando somewhere. Because I mean, what business would Mando have going back to Tatooine unless he wants to get like the Marshal or something? Yeah, it's so weird. I have no clue what's going to happen. There's so many different theories. I don't think Baby Yoda's not going to die in this series at any point. That's not a fact, but it's pretty close to it. So if the Empire is going to have to become much bigger threat at some point. I wonder if maybe, I mean, they're tracking Mando. Mando's on his way to Ahsoka. Maybe Moff Gideon captures Ahsoka or of some kind. Maybe kills her and uses her midichlorians or something. I can't believe we're talking about midichlorians. That's so weird. But
one of the best parts of the episode.
I think, yeah, it's so hard because again, I have no clue other than Ahsoka is going to be there. I don't know. What do you think, Lunga? I'm lost.
I think you're in denial. I think you're in denial. It's like you see these things, but you don't think they're going to go there, but they are. We are going to see Boba Fett again. He's coming back. He's tracking him. What he's doing is tracking him, and it's going to be like I said early on. He's going to pop up at the most unexpected moment. When you think things are safe, or Mando thinks like, okay, we're finishing this, or we're safe, he's going to pop up at the last moment. He's tracking him. He's been tracking him since we saw him find what's her face out in the desert after the bounty episode, the bounty hunter episode. That was him that walked up to her, and he's been tracking this whole time. And he's going to leave Tatooine. He's not going back to Tatooine. Boba left Tatooine to follow him. That's the first thing I see. Now, if you guys can indulge me, this might take a minute. I know I don't want to take up all the time of this show. However, I do want to talk about why this show wasn't as great as you thought it was. This episode. There's the humor, like we all love humor and we want some humor in Star Wars, but if there's too much, this is nonsense. We don't want too much humor. Baby Yoda provides all the little humor you need. The beginning of the episode was genius. The little thing with him being in it with the wires was absolutely genius. I loved it. Every time I see Baby Yoda, it gives me all the humor. This thing with the macaroons was awesome. I loved them. And that little chair, it was perfect. We got and that was like the first about 8 minutes of the episode, almost the first third of the episode. We got all the humor we needed. Then we go up to Greef Karga. We get the introduction there in Navarro. We see the times changed, and we see that that time has moved by, and there's changes have happened on Navarro, which is good. Then we get up the MacGuffin. We got to stop this. We got to blow up this base to get the Empire off here. Then they bring in Horatio Sands again. Okay, did we really need him?
No.
Throughout that whole infiltration of this base, did we really need him to make a Family Guy joke about a railing? I mean, did we really need that? I mean, that was literally a Family Guy joke from Blue Harvest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we really need that? We did not need him in. I mean, you could have shown him when he came, when he stopped to his office and say, "Oh, hey, look, this guy's out," and then end it. Then it could just have been Greef, Cardoon, and Mando going for the base. They did not need him there at all. It was all unneeded, injected humor in the second act of this episode that was just not freaking necessary. The way they rolled through, it should have been a fight scene closer to how it was when he was on the prison ship first season and had a little more challenge trying to get there. Then when we get to the reveals, that's when the episode picks up again for me. So that whole middle section about them getting in was just horrible to me. It was not good.
Horrible.
But then they redeemed themselves with the
I liked
escape.
it, man. I liked him being in there because I do think he was the comedic punching bag relief for it. And for me, it was I really thought, for me, it added tension to the whole thing. And I know it's hard to think that he would add any tension to the episode because he is kind of a bumbling fool. I thought he was going to betray them the entire time. Like, I really felt like he had this grudge against Greef Karga. And the second, Mando walked in.
You didn't see the betrayal at the very beginning? The red alien that was fixing his ship.
Oh, yeah, that part.
Yeah, we saw that. He was at the end.
Yeah, but I thought
but you saw it at the beginning. He kind of looked back. You knew he was going to.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, you have to do something with that red alien. But I really thought the blue guy was going to do something. And I'm kind of glad he didn't. But I liked a lot of scenes that he was in. For me, that middle part where there wasn't a lot of, I guess, story development other than when they got into the lab area where they're like, it's not a Imperial facility, it's a lab. To me, it felt like the 80s Star Wars. It really felt like just classic, simple action. And it, as I said in my review for this episode this week, is that this felt like a Star Wars movie. Like when Mando comes in and he saves the day against the TIE fighters, like that whole sequence felt like I was watching it in the theater.
Yes. The escape was beautiful. I loved the whole escape. From the moment they found out, we got the big reveals in the lab, and then their escape out of there, was great. It was the infiltration. From the moment they left the office, when they got on the speeder, up until they got to the lab, that part right there to me was just, they didn't need him there at all. He was pointless in that scene.
Yeah, I could see that. For me, I like that the show doesn't take itself so serious in that sense, and that for me, I think that's what they were kind of doing with it. And I feel like he was a little bit of importance in terms of it seemed like understanding the Imperial stuff, like being able to hack into things, and he was the one who said it was 3 days ago. I'm sure Mando or Greef Karga and Cara Dune could have read that, but
they should have had him die like Queel. Then he would have had a purpose.
Then we wouldn't have been upset.
Like, man, I was actually going to let him go tomorrow.
Yeah, they should have had him in that speeder that he loved, and then when they escaped, it landed right on top of him, and they were like, "What?"
It just splatters
blue splatter.
I guess he's free now. No, I was fine with his appearance in this, and I really like this episode. I hope Carl Weathers directs another episode of The Mandalorian in the future, because I wouldn't go far and say, I want him to direct like a movie. I know some people, like the last episode that had Bryce Dallas Howard directing, people were like, give her a movie. I was like, I don't know about that one just yet, but I do like what they've done so far. I really think that this show has brought out the best in Star Wars so far, and it makes me extremely interested in what's going to happen over the next 4 episodes. So go ahead.
Oh, and let me answer your question, because you did start out with a segment. You asked a question about Cara Dune and Greef Karga. I think from this point on, they're just going to be guest appearances. This right here, what we saw, especially with Cara Dune, was the springboard for her series, or a series she's in. That's what that was. It's setting it up. Now she's the Marshal. Her arc ended as far as the Mandalorian goes. She's a Marshal there, and then we got this tease about her maybe becoming part of the New Republic again. I think that right there, what we see is the springboard for her series.
I agree. I don't think that she's getting her series anymore because of what we talked about last week, but I do think there's more to her story that we are going to explore because sometimes some simple shots of her just like standing there and kind of thinking about things, like what she's thinking about, that adds a lot of weight. And so for us as an audience, that makes us go, all right, what is she going to do now? Now that she's brought peace to Navarro, what could happen next? But I do agree with you, Lunga. I do think we're going to see more of Boba Fett, and that's kind of the segue I'll take for our next little news. Is that there is a recent report from the Direct that suggests that a spinoff series from the Mandalorian series actually takes place before the Mandalorian. And we've heard reports a few weeks ago that the Boba Fett series is happening. And I mean, a lot of the one of the scoop guys that I really like, his name is Bespin Bulletin. He's kind of confirming what we knew a few weeks ago, is that the Boba Fett series is filming right now as we speak in Los Angeles. So it looks like the series that is taking place before the Mandalorian is going to be the one that is centered around Boba Fett. But in the same report, there's an actor named Jordan Bulger who stars in a show called Peaky Blinders that my girlfriend like loves to death, and I can't understand why. But he's apparently in talks for a supporting role. So it looks like we're getting the Boba Fett series that takes place right before the Mandalorian, which is that 5-year gap between Return of the Jedi and then this series.
So I was right about that one too. Woohoo!
Yeah. You're hitting the nail on the head of a lot of this. So I'll ask you, Lunga, since you did get it right, what do you think this series is going to be about if it comes to Boba Fett? What's the main job for this as in terms of the story? Because from everything we've been hearing, it's a spinoff series, but it's not going to be called like Boba Fett, a Star Wars story. It just seems like it's going to be centered around him in some way.
I mean, I woohooed because I was right, but I'm not happy I'm right because. Seriously, we just saw him. He's a nomad, right? Okay? He doesn't have his armor. What are we going to do in his first 5 years between Jedi and Mando? It's going to be him on Tatooine for this episode, for this whole series? What are we getting? You know what I mean? That's... It's like if you're going to do something, you needed to do something, an early Boba Fett story or a post whatever happens with him in Mando story. Doing it for that 5 years before he's just walking around Tatooine. I mean, it's like, come on, man. What are we?
I don't know if I agree with you for this reason only. We don't know how the rest of the season is going to go with him in the Mandalorian. Sure. I think we're going to see him again, and I think when we see him again, there's a potential opportunity for Din Djarin to say, like, all right, how'd you lose your armor? Are you Mandalore? What's this all about? And going into the season, my prediction for the Boba Fett series was that Cobb Vanth wasn't going to give up the armor. Cobb Vanth was still going to have the armor, and Boba Fett and Cobb Vanth were going to have to either work their differences out, or he was going to have to try to fight him for it, and that was kind of be the series for Boba. But now, to me, it seems like he won't have the armor, or just because it's before the Mandalorian doesn't mean it's after Return of the Jedi.
Oh, okay. I thought you said that they were saying it was supposed to be in that. No, time period.
All they said is that it's before the Mandalorian. So that opens up a lot of opportunities. But we also have to take into account that Tamara Morrison is likely going to be playing Boba Fett. I would hope my dear friend Daniel Logan would be playing the role, but if he is, he hasn't told me, and I know where he's at, and it's definitely not LA right now. So don't think it's my boy Daniel Logan. So I don't think it's going to be a young Boba Fett before episode 4 or episode 5. So I mean, I think it would be around time of Return of the Jedi, but I mean, who's to say? Goldman, what are your thoughts on this?
See, this is why I'm kind of against a Boba Fett show. If you look at a lot of these stories that revolve around a character we already know, the purpose of the story, I feel like, is usually to give extra depth to what we see of them in the films. Like with Obi-Wan, we see him in Revenge of the Sith. He goes to Tatooine, and then in New Hope, he's still on Tatooine. And the purpose of the Obi-Wan show is to fill out that gap and give more to his reaction to Order 66 and what happened with Anakin and the Jedi. So it adds more to the saga. With Boba Fett, I mean, he doesn't do anything really in the films besides capture Han Solo and fall in a Sarlacc pit and go follow around Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. So if he has a more prominent role later on in this season of Mandalorian, then they can use the show to maybe flesh him out more from what we see in the Mandalorian, but we don't know that yet. So this is why it's so hard, because they could do anything. I'm curious to see if it will go before Return of the Jedi. I think so, because the most iconic thing about Boba Fett is literally the way he looks. That is the most iconic thing about him. So if you're going to do something after Return of the Jedi, then you're just stripping Boba Fett of what makes him famous in the first place. I think, actually, I go back. I changed what I said earlier. I do think we'll see more of Boba Fett, just because if this series is true, I feel like we can't have a show based off of just what we've seen unless they want to tell a completely random story. But is it, they refer to these new shows as Mandalorian spin-offs? Is this a Mandalorian spin-off, or are they just doing a Boba Fett show that happens to tie in somewhat with the Mandalorian? Because if it's a spin-off, then I feel like it has to do a lot more with the plot of the Mandalorian than if it's just its own story. So I have no clue what this show could be about.
The report that I read from the Direct, who is the one who exclusively reported it, did say that this is like a spin-off. It's odd. They didn't say the spin-off is Boba Fett. They said there's a spin-off series that is taking, like, from the Mandalorian, that is taking place before the Mandalorian series. And then they also said, but there's a lot of reports that there is a Boba Fett series coming. And there's, I think, 2 or 3 credible sources, one of them being Bespin Bulletin, one of them being the people who reported on the Boba Fett series filming, and then Jason Ward, who's now infamous in the fandom as a scooper. But he said right before they announced that they were going to film the Boba Fett series, he said they're not filming it a week from now, they're filming it right now. But he didn't say what it was, but all signs point to Boba Fett series. But it's also a miniseries. So I agree with both of you that he's going to show up again in this show for the Mandalorian season 2, and I think what's going to happen is he's going to get his Mandalorian armor back, and that'll kind of be his launch pad. And honestly, I could see it being like the last episode of the season. Now I could see them going full circle with this and having Boba Fett show up at the end of season episode 1 for season 2, and being at the last episode for season 2, and that kind of piqued the audience interest in this character.
Yeah, we're probably not going to see him until the second to last or last episode.
So I have a question. So remember how after the first episode came out, we were talking about what they're going to do with Boba Fett for the rest of the season. We talked about like a confrontation between Boba Fett and Mando. Will Mando give him the armor back if he's not a true Mandalorian? Do you think something like that's still going to happen?
But the last episode completely blew that out of the water. We just remember we found out he's in a cult. He's in a cult. And the reason why he doesn't know about Jedi, the reason why he doesn't know about all this stuff is because he's indoctrinated in Death Watch. And that's what Bo-Katan was trying to get through to him. She kind of did, oh, jeez.
You're one of those guys. You're a Scientologist kind of thing.
And not only that, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but they did a huge allegorical in it where, the whole first season we kept seeing his flashbacks where you keep seeing the man, at the end when the Mandalorian raises his hand to him to help him to save him as a child, and they completely mirrored that when Bo-Katan was saving him from under the water. The grate opened up and she put her hand out. So she's like his rebirth, a new awakening for him to be born again, if you will, as a Mandalorian, but find out the true way. If you will. I think this is gonna be a big struggle because everything he knew was destroyed as a child, right? Then he had to learn everything over, and he became like latched onto this life because this is what he knows, and now all of that is gonna be like thrown to the wind, and he's gonna have a crisis of identity because of this.
I think we'll see that come out with the Boba Fett mainly because he is gonna say, like, if Mando's like, hey, you lost your armor, how'd you get it? Like, who really are you? Boba Fett can say, well, first of all, I'm, there's a Mandalore called like Fett, I think, and I'm a direct descendant of him in terms of not bloodline, but name, but I think that's only in the Legends universe. Right. But second of all, you're part of Death Watch, which my father posed and everything, and I can actually show you the true way of Mandalore or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of potential now, and it seems like this show, of course, is being called Mandalorian, is going to focus a lot on the Mandalorians, but it seems like we're actually exploring a little bit more of different Mandalorians, like Boba Fett, like Bo-Katan, like the Death Watch, all at the same time, and potentially giving them an equal amount of opportunity to interact with Din Djarin. And I think that is going to kind of reflect really well on Din Djarin in the future, on like where he could take the Mandalorian religion and creed, and kind of as that planet comes back together, probably he could be the next Mandalore. I mean, that could be where this all ends up. Is that Din Djarin? And this is something I'm sure someone has thought about, but I've never heard anyone talk about it before. I could possibly see Din Djarin becoming the next Mandalore because he's the one who tries to bring Death Watch reunited with the people like Bo-Katan, people like Boba Fett, and just kind of make it a new, I don't know what you would call it, but a new way to approach things. What do you think, Goldman?
I definitely think so. And there's one thing in this episode, I'm pretty sure we all noticed, that I think foreshadows that Mando is really going to change at some point and maybe not be so strict with his helmet, was when he was drinking the soup that Baby Yoda was trying to peek and see what he looks like, because Baby Yoda doesn't know. I think that it kind of somewhat foreshadowed that Baby Yoda will see his face at some point. Probably not this season, but definitely in the future. So I agree. I definitely see that's how this episode's going to go, because I think they're going to do a little bit more explaining as to what Death Watch is in the show. Obviously, we know what it is, but to most people, they just heard that he's the child of the Watch and that it's an old way of Mandalorians. So I think he's going to get confronted with maybe the armor again, and maybe she'll become a villain at some point. So I definitely can see that happening. I'm just curious to see how that ties in with the fight against the Empire. Maybe at the end, that's how Bo-Katan gets the Darksaber back. They team up, and then Din Djarin becomes the Mandalore or something like that. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of moving pieces right now. And I'm curious to see how they all connect.
All right, well, the next topic we have is still related to these beautiful people we call Mandalorians, but this one is about Bo-Katan. There's a news this week from Jordan Mason, a guy that I cordially like on Twitter. He says that Bo-Katan is going to appear in the Bad Batch series that is set to debut on Disney Plus in spring of 2021. And I have to say, this doesn't seem too surprising, just because we've seen her in Rebels, we've seen her in Clone Wars, where she originated. She's now in Mandalorian. Bad Batch is coming out in 2021. We've heard about the Night of 1,000 Tears, and the clones being clones of someone who is Jango Fett, who's not truly a Mandalorian, but we'll call him Mandalorian just because he had the armor. I could see that story kind of merging in some way. So, Goldman, I know you were not one who was very excited about the Bad Batch series. Does this make you a little bit more excited hearing that Bo-Katan will be in the Bad Batch?
Sure. It makes me excited in the sense that Lucasfilm is really focused on connectivity. And I think they looked at like something like the Marvel Universe and said, oh, if we take someone like Iron Man and put him in a Captain America film, it just makes the universe feel a lot more connected. So something like this is similar. You got someone like Bo-Katan was in Clone Wars, was in Rebels, is now the Mandalorian. Let's put her in the Bad Batch. So it just makes everything, it gives a little more legitimacy to the animated shows, especially now since Bo-Katan is a live action character. So sure, it makes me a little more excited about that. But that's the plot of the show. I'm not like dreading it. I've opened up to it a little bit more. I'm curious to see. I think it'll be a much more personal story, which I actually can be a fan of. But sure, I definitely think Bo-Katan is a plus. I don't think she'll be a prominent character or anything, but if she is in the show, it'll be something somewhat significant, I would guess.
Lunga, what do you think about Bo-Katan showing up in Bad Batch?
This is going to sound horrible because I loved the Clone Wars, but as we get, further and further, my anticipation for the Bad Batch is getting less and less. I'm not really that excited about it. I got to be honest with you. And adding Bo-Katan almost feels like they think it's not going to do that well. So let's add a character people are all hype about. I don't know. I don't know. I want to just keep her live action for now. I'm happy with her being live action. Don't put her in a Bad Batch. It's even though she's of that era and has to do with it, it's gonna feel out of place unless they're gonna tie in the Bad Batch and finding out what. No, it can't be because it's afterwards. Oh no, it's after Clone Wars. Unless they tie in Bad Batch finding out how she lost the Darksaber to Moff Gideon. Maybe they could show it in there a little bit. I don't know, but her being in there, I don't think it's necessary.
Well, this show, I'm assuming, takes place soon after Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
And Rebels, which takes place like a year before the original
Right.
trilogy,
Way
that's
down.
when Bo-Katan has a Darksaber. So I don't think we'll see that in this show unless they really want to have old Bad Batch clones walking around, which I don't see that happening.
It doesn't build my hype up for it much. Bad Batch is just something that I mean. I remember season 7 coming out, and I think that was the first arc, right?
Yeah.
Or was that the second?
It was
The first arc. I fell asleep, man. Like I watched all 4. Like I loved season 7 in terms of the Mandalorian arc, or the Mandalore arc that they had going on. But overall, I think it was kind of a disappointing season. I think we all overhyped it a little bit too much. And their arc was not something that worked really well for me. I was really bored with it. The characters just felt generic, but it did feel like traditional Clone Wars, where it's like, yeah, I'm sure younger, like when I was a teenager and watching this, probably like preteens, 12 to 13 years old, probably would have liked this. I don't like it much anymore, and I think that's what this show is kind of for. It's kind of like a redoing of the Clone Wars, where there's going to be a lot of younger boys and girls who actually like this more than guys our age. But I think this show bringing in Bo-Katan does set up the possibility of exploring a little bit more of what happened to Mandalore after Revenge of the Sith, because the only thing we know from the synopsis about the Bad Batch is that they basically are mercenaries now, and why they're not affected by the chip for Order 66 and all that stuff may come into play. But we're going to see a lot of, it's going to be kind of like Mandalorian in terms of cameos. We're going to see Rex. We're probably going to see Ahsoka because, Dave Filoni loves some Ahsoka, and we're probably going to see Cody, and now we're going to see Bo-Katan. So we'll explore all that stuff a little bit more. But my excitement for this on a scale of 1 to 10 is like maybe a 2 at most.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if this series, I'm not sure if it's like confirmed that it's going to take place. Is it confirmed that it's going to take place? The whole series will be after Order 66?
It did say
assumption.
I think.
Okay.
Listen, I'll look it up real quick and let you know in a second.
Because if it's not, I feel like at some point, definitely most of the series it will be after Order 66. But I wouldn't be surprised if a decent part of the show was kind of just filling out some of the unfinished arcs, or the arcs that just were never made from the original Clone Wars. Because there was this whole Kashyyyk arc that I believe the Bad Batch was involved with. I could see that happening, and maybe after Order 66, they're kind of cleaning up the end of the Clone Wars, and they do some of that. And then at some point, the Bad Batch realizes, we're just expendable to the Empire, and they go through some whole journey. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a few of the unfinished arcs from the Clone Wars. And I wonder if the show is going to be like the Clone Wars, where it's like arcs, or if it's going to be like Rebels, where it's kind of one more linear story. So we'll see. I agree with you. I'm not that excited, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be a mix of both, linear, but also a few arcs. Here's the little synopsis that they have on the Star Wars website. It says, the series follows the elite and experimental clones of the Bad Batch as they find their way in a rapidly changing galaxy in the immediate aftermath of the Clone Wars. Okay. Members of the Bad Batch, a unique squad of clones who vary genetically from the brothers in the Clone Army, each possess a singular exceptional skill, which makes them extraordinarily effective as soldiers and formidable crew. And then they say they take on daring missions as mercenaries as they struggle to stay afloat and find a new purpose. So, nothing specific other than it's right after the Clone Wars, which is right during Revenge of the Sith. So they got some timeline to work with. Last topic, though, and this is the one that I've been looking forward to the most because I know Lunga is very passionate about this topic. The Lego Star Wars Holiday Special came out 3-4 days ago now, and I for one enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it was a very good holiday special, far better than the one from 1978, which I don't know if any of you guys have actually seen that, but it's actually considered a war crime in some cultures to see that one. But I thought the special was cute. I thought it was a kind of a homage to a lot of diehard Star Wars fans. If you've seen every single piece of Star Wars media, this is for you. But Lunga has a different take. Let me hear your thoughts, buddy.
Dude, listen, I was one of those fans that was not happy after the sequels. I have no problem saying that. I was not happy after the sequels. I was very upset. Now, I'm not one of those complete haters. Screw Disney, and you're destroying my childhood. I'm not that bad with it. But I was not happy after it. This, to me, I was more angry and upset after watching this stupid, which is supposed to be a comedy, than I was watching the sequels. Why? Because, listen, people always try to smooth over things they want to push on you with comedy. They made her just... It was revolved around Rey. Let's be frank, okay? The whole holiday special revolved around Rey. Not only did it revolve around Rey, she's now supposedly the reason why Luke blew up the Death Star. She's there. Look, he blew up the Death Star. Oh, wait a minute, I helped him blow up the Death Star. Oh, okay, and then she fights Darth Vader for 20 minutes. She's like, apparently she can just hold him off. Oh, she's training Finn now. She's the great trainer, and she finds out at the end that, spoiler guys, so at the end that, oh, listen, masters and pupils or apprentices, they're friends. Bitch, you don't got no master. Where's Luke? Luke is not technically your master. You trained for 5 minutes with him, and all you did was look into a pool and then scare him. That's all you really did. So you didn't train with him. Oh, technically, I guess we could say JJ's reboot. You trained with Leia. Where was Leia? Was she in this? Nope, I didn't see her.
Oh, she was. She was. She was at the end.
At the end. Oh, thanks, Goldman. Thank you. That's even more insulting. That's even more insulting. That did not help. That made it worse. Okay, but it was just like, it's like, what are we doing here? It's like she comes into this and like, oh look, I'm so perfect. I'm training the next Jedi's, which Finn apparently is one of, I guess. And oh wait a minute, I don't know what I'm doing. And then she goes through this whole reverse Christmas Carol thing, and then at the end, Yoda comes and tells her, oh but wait, look how useless everyone else is without you. They need you. You have made everything better in the Star Wars universe. And she looks, yeah, I didn't I? She goes back. It's just, that's what I got out of this whole thing. That's what I got out of it.
Lunga, the real holiday special was the friends we made along the way. I mean,
So
what about all the ones you alienated along the way? Oh,
God.
I got my M6 here with my Rey and my Kylo to celebrate how awesome this holiday special was. You take this thing way too seriously. It's not canon. They're not trying to. I
enjoyed the fun stuff. There was a lot of funny stuff.
They're not trying to make it seem like Rey went back in time and helped Luke blow up the Death Star. To me, I just saw that as, oh, she just like happened to go to that time and then just like left. It didn't like alter the course of events. It's not like some of the other time travel we've seen where she goes back in time and just screws over everything.
Perspective, Goldman.
Oh my God! You think people are really thinking that Rey is like some savior?
If by people you mean children, impressionable children, the next generation of Star Wars fans. Yes.
No.
This is part of the culture, Goldman. We gotta.
That's right.
Gotta influence these kids right. We gotta make sure they see the
original. It's more death.
It's more brainwashing. Right? But this holiday special was the definition of fun. It's Lego, which means you shouldn't be taking it too seriously. I as a sequel fan, it was nice seeing somewhat of a continuation of the Rise of Skywalker. I mean,
but
Finn
it's not canon, so it's not a continuation.
I know, but it was still somewhat nice. It was nice to see. It's still, even though it's not canon.
Oh, because it pandered to your demographic. Yes, I get it.
You just said it pandered to kids. Are you calling me a kid?
No, I said it pandered to your demographic.
Well, I think it pandered to anyone who just wants to have fun with Star Wars.
No.
But I don't know. It was like, I thought the humor was great. It wasn't memes all the time. There were a few memes, but I thought a lot of it was just original, funny humor.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, I feel like when people want to rate this out of 10, taking it too seriously, it's fun. Like I watched it. I was laughing. Yeah. I had a good time.
The fun stuff. Listen, there was fun stuff. Kylo Ren dancing around with his shirt off was hilarious. Everything involving Palpatine and Vader was hilarious. When we had the whole mashup scene of everyone with Maul with no legs bouncing around. I mean, all of that was funny. That was Lego. That was comedy. That was cool. Now, if they just did the whole thing like that and made it literally like you can't take any of this crap seriously, then I'd be okay. But they didn't. Every time they got to the parts with Rey and her main storyline, that was a thread of seriousness in that story.
Well, you want to have some resemblance of a story in these specials, and the story is about friendship. It's a silly story, but it's something.
Yeah, I'll meet you boys halfway on that. I'm with Lunga in the sense that when it came to Rey's story, I was slightly annoyed. Not because I didn't like the story or anything. It just felt like it had a very good pace with it whenever she was traveling through time and all that stuff and just having little gaffes. Like I normally don't like time travel stuff, and you guys know me, I don't love the prequels, but I loved when she went back to episode 1 and episode 2, ran into Obi-Wan and Anakin on the elevator. That stuff really worked well for me. But it is like when she was back on the temple for the Life Day thing, and it was just, I think her and Luke there. I mean, that part kind of got a little stale for me over time, but seeing her fight Darth Vader, I loved, for me, seeing the red lightsaber versus the yellow lightsaber. If anything, that made me upset that we actually didn't see that happen in live action, because I thought the yellow lightsaber looked really good clashing with the red one. It's just small things like that that really worked well for me. I think the holiday special was funny. I enjoyed it for what it was. I think it's something that's not going to appeal to us so much, but I think it's something that if you have children, if you have little young siblings or something like that who like Star Wars, this is like great. It did its job in sense of it being a holiday special. If you like Star Wars and you want to watch this with friends and family, this is what you should watch. And I think it works for anyone of all ages. I mean, there's so many like little nods to us diehard Star Wars fans, like Obi-Wan saying hello there, and a lot of the stuff. Like McClunky. Yeah, that one I was like, okay, who would know that? Like, but us diehards, and then even the like the poking fun at the rise of Skywalker, bringing Palpatine back. And there was one thing that kind of made me and my girlfriend laugh when we watched it, which was the Hux walking in on Kylo without a shirt, and it seemed to like shout out the community of the fandom who wants to see Hux and Kylo be like a couple, because Hux like kept staring at his abs. I was like, okay, I see. Like, it wasn't like overabundant where like Hux is like drooling at the mouth, but he was just like, like every time he saw Kylo without a shirt, he just started staring at like his V line and was like, what's going on? So I mean, that stuff I could see some people being annoyed with, but like, I just thought it was good humor. And I'm with Lunga since that like Rey's story was not great, and that part I fell asleep, I'll be honest, around that time. But mostly I found it very funny, and like short clips would be something fun to watch of this, like little highlights of it. Want to give a quick shout out to Gamer Ranks, or Gamer Man. He says, should we be worried about Gina Carano because Harley Sawyer on The Flash on the CW got fired for some old racist tweets? Thank you very much for the super chat, man. Lunga, you're more of the DC fan. What do you know about this? I don't know about these racisms.
It's not the same.
Okay.
The Harley Sawyer thing was more like the James Gunn deal, where you look back at old tweets and he says some stuff that was kind of problematic, and this and that. The Gina Carano thing, she's not taking crap from anybody and she's pushing back. You can agree or disagree with her. I'm not saying anyone needs to be on any camp of agreements or disagreements, but it's not the same kind of thing that happened with Harley. She's not going to get fired over that. They're not going to fire her over that. Now, if she comes out and says something completely asinine at this day and age in response to her little Twitter wars, then that could happen. But she hasn't done anything to this point for that to even be a worry, I think.
People on Twitter have really overblown the Gina Carano thing, like the whole calling her transphobic, and like I understand being for mask and everything, but she's basically just said like, hey, I don't understand the whole mask stuff, or even like the most recent thing that people are getting mad at her about is she said something like, I think we should have like transparency on our election stuff, and a lot of people got mad at her about that, and I'm like, okay, well, whether you're on the right, left, or center, shouldn't you want your elections to be, fair and transparent? I mean, even the side right now who's suing, the election system right now, even if they probably inevitably lose, if it gives us more transparency, I don't see why that's such a bad thing. So I do find it crazy how Pedro Pascal can tweet something and make a picture like basically calling people who voted for the president Donald Trump are basically Nazis, and he doesn't get canceled for that because, I mean, that's a huge reach. But Gina Carano says we should wear masks, and I'm not for shutting down the country, and we should take her job. It's a little crazy how people react to that kind of stuff. But I don't see her getting fired. If anything, I just, if Lucasfilm doesn't like what she says, I just see her character becoming less relevant as time goes on, and maybe gets one more episode with like a conclusion to her story. So
yeah,
that's
I agree. She didn't really say anything cancel worthy, or at least I think she didn't say anything racist or anything like that. She just shared some of her opinions that a lot of people seem to not like. And I think people have to realize that Twitter is not the real life what Twitter says is not what most people think. So no, I don't think Lucasfilm is going to react by the way
now that we have the right-wing Twitter called Parler. Now, be careful now.
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing people got mad at her about. She joined Parler, and they were like, "Oh, like someone shared like a Wikipedia article saying that like it's mostly right-wingers and Republicans and Trump supporters." I was like, I thought it was just another social media site. So now the narrative is you literally cannot join another social media site unless it's the one we like. Like.
Right. Well, what it is Parler is the Twitter as to what Fox News was when it came out to CNN.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Parler is supposed to be a response to, you can really have free speech here. You're not going to have, Jake and them from Twitter, censoring you like they were censoring Trump and stop blocking posts. We won't do that here. Everybody will have a free voice here. And now supposedly there's reports now that people that are more liberal leaning are getting blocked on there. And it's like, oh, really? It sounds like it's the same thing happening.
The pot calling the kettle black. Yeah. Shout out to Elijah for this one. He's saying we may have gone too far in a few places.
Definitely may have gone too far in a few places.
Yeah, that's Twitter and Twitter in general. No, I don't see Gina Carano getting fired or anything really negative happening to her. I mean, I'll be honest. A lot of these people who are talking, bad stuff about her on Twitter and having a lot of like say about like what she's doing wrong, I would really like them to go show up to her and like say it to her face. Yeah. Like truly. Like I remember someone saying like, oh, because someone said that like was explaining to her the he/him thing and the they/them in the bios for the gender pronouns. I believe I'm a little ignorant on the subject, but apparently she changed her stuff to beep/boop or something like that.
Yeah.
Beep, bop, boop.
Yeah.
And that pissed a lot of people off when it clearly was just a troll. But I understand, I guess. So someone said something about her, like, what is she going to do when she runs into Pedro Pascal on set of The Mandalorian for like season 3? I'm like, shake his hand. Like, what do you guys think he is going to do? I love Pedro, but like that man is probably 150 pounds. And Gina used to fight Chris Cyborg, arguably the greatest women's MMA fighter of all time.
Yeah. He is not Oberon Martell in real life.
No. I mean, he literally had to get stitches on set of The Mandalorian for like walking into a door. I don't think.
Well, if Pedro Pascal did fight Gina Carano, he may end up like Oberon. So.
Oh God.
She is the mountain compared to him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean. Yeah, I was surprised there was that scandal about Bo-Katan and the boob thing, the boob armor, and that didn't happen with Gina Carano, and that just goes to show like why I think we should leave Twitter for Parler, because that came from some like far left feminists on Twitter saying like, oh, this is annoying that Bo-Katan has boob armor. Oh yeah. I saw her name and I was like, Antifa. Oh, Anita. I didn't read it well enough.
To be fair, a lot of liberals get annoyed by her because she's just she's ridiculous. They're like, oh, just shut up.
I like the comment from Elijah again. Or I'm not brave enough for politics. You should record that from Obi-Wan and Revenge of the Sith, and if someone ever asks something political related, just play it.
Yeah. I'll start keeping that one on the back end because that's a good one. Anytime Mark Hamill, because I have a lot of friends on Instagram who have big Star Wars accounts, and anytime Mark Hamill posts his political beliefs, which is about every day now, someone comments, "Oh, I'm not brave enough for politics," and it gets like thousands and thousands of likes. So it's funny world we live in when it comes to Star Wars. It's always focused around politics, but we always avoid it.
Never fail.
Thank God for that. George Lucas, he thought ahead. He thought 20 years ahead, and he's like, you know what? These dialogues are awful, but the fans are gonna love the memes.
George Lucas Loki invented memes. The other big revolution in our culture.
Oh, fuck them, but I was going to tarnish my legacy if I make the prequels. I said, I don't care.
If anything, he is a walking meme himself. I mean, that guy literally just walks around in the same shirt he's worn for 40 years.
You know how much I love Lucas too, right? I was on Andy's channel and we were doing Nerd Wars, and the argument we had was for the first round was according to, like the article says, did the prequels tarnish his legacy? And I took the side of yes, it did, even though I don't technically believe full-heartedly it did, but everything you and me have talked about, buddy. When we talk about everything that Lucas screwed up, and it's like, this man, listen, he cannot write dialogue. He cannot, Kasdan Kirshner saved Star Wars and all this other stuff, and I won the argument.
I don't think there's I love Lucas. I do think prequels ruined his legacy. I mean, if he had ended right after, what was it? If he stopped directing in 77 like he originally had, here would be his legacy. American Graffiti, which a lot of us don't remember anymore, but that was a big hit in the 70s because it was resonating with the people who grew up in the 60s. So you have American Graffiti, a little culture icon for that moment. You have Star Wars, greatest franchise of all time. You have Indiana Jones, and then you have a lot of the revolutionary stuff that he did as time went on. He's the reason Pixar is a thing. He sold Pixar to Steve Jobs, who sold it to Disney. He is the reason we have what is it called? The Drastiflex system, the camera system from the 70s. I mean, technically ILM did that, but it's under his name. And then it comes to the prequel revolutionary technology. But aside from all that, like if you take away the digital technology he did, all he would have is the amazing legacy of Star Wars, Indiana Jones, American Graffiti. I mean, that guy would have such a big foundation for his legacy that now we look back and we're like, it's funny that a lot of prequel fans defend what arguably killed his legacy, and so it's he's a very unique character out of that group they call the movie brats, with like Brian De Palma, Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola. Interesting guy. I am interested if he will ever make another movie again, because he always says it's going to
not for the public.
Well, he says that it's going to be like films that no one sees.
I would pay to see those films. People pay a significant amount of money.
Yeah, I'd pay $100 for a ticket. I mean,
I think he wants films that nobody sees because he doesn't want to listen to people's complaints. He just wants to make a movie. That's true. I just want to make it. I like it. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Whatever. I mean, other directors, they do have a thing like, oh, I want people engaged. I want them to enjoy this. I know I can't please everyone, but I want to. Him is like, nah, I just want to make movies.
Yeah. Oh, Lucas does not care about what anyone thinks. I mean, even when it came to what was it, American Graffiti and THX 1138. The people, the studios who got involved with it, he was like, you know what? I'm sick of your shit. All right, I made this film. All you do is distribute and pay for it. What the hell do you know? And ever since then, he's held a grudge.
If you want to see some good George Lucas humor, I was watching these videos the other day of him. It was like some TMZ clips of what do you call the people that want autographs? Like, so the autograph hounds or whatever. So they kept on going to George Lucas to ask him, and he's like telling them off. He's like, get a life. Get a real job. Those
he
are pretty
hates
funny.
Autographs. In the documentary I have about him coming up next month, there's a part where I talk about it, and I'll just tell you what the story I found out in it is that there was a time where one of the he was like a marketing guy for Lucasfilm. Oh, the fan relations guy. I can't remember his name for the life of me right now, but he dealt with all the fan relations from like the 70s onward. And one day he loved it at the time. Nowadays it probably is miserable, but at the time it was very interesting because it's when Star Wars just came out, and we didn't have all the technology we have these days. But he said one day he sent George Lucas 6 copies of Marvel comic books and said, hey, can you sign this for charity, like autograph all of them? It came back to the guy with a note from George Lucas saying, never ask me to autograph anything ever again, including charity work. He hates autographs apparently, and so anytime you see him autographing stuff, there's autographs of the guy out there, but he never does it with pleasure. And I know what you're talking about, Goldman. There's like some TMZ videos of him being like, oh, these guys are gonna sell it for $50 and then hand the autograph like to the guy who's asking for the autograph. And there's that one TMZ when he was getting in a car. And there's a guy who's a notorious reseller of stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you get the whole argue with him. No, I know what you do with this stuff. You go back and sell it. No, get out of here. Yeah, like that. Even Ewan McGregor shat on the Star Wars fandom for a little bit, where he was like, this documentary. He's like, people would come up to me and they'd be like, Ewan, may the Force be with you. And he's like, oh, get the bloody hell out of here. There's no Force.
You ever hear that story of the kid that asked Alec Guinness for an autograph? And he's like, I've watched Star Wars every day, or I've watched it 100 times. And Alec Guinness said, go get a life.
Yeah. There was a news clip that I just watched last night for my editing, where one of the guys, he was like a big fan of the original trilogy, and he had like a website for Star Wars. And so Lucasfilm sent him like a invitation to go see like one of the premieres, like early press screenings for The Phantom Menace back when people actually wanted to see that movie. And the newscast guy said, Jonathan has seen this film, each original trilogy film 30 times. Get a life. And I was like, bro, that's it. He's only seen it 30 times. 30. Like,
that's not a fan.
Yeah,
a Fairweather fan.
Yeah. I'm like, bro, that was in 1999 when it's been 16 years since the last Star Wars film. It's 2020. If you've seen the original trilogy 30 times, you're like, oh, so you're a casual Star Wars fan. Well, welcome to the club. We're glad to have you. Like 30 times, like, bro, we were
seen it 30 times this year. Or
like when did you get into the fandom? That's a small number, and it's kind of embarrassing to think about now because I got to the point in my life where I would watch the original trilogy and I'd fall asleep because I've seen it so many times. I'm like, okay, I know what's happening.
Everything but hurt.
Oh yeah, honestly. Well, this might be around the point we wrap things up. You guys have any final remarks and comments? Any predictions for next week episode? The next episode is going to be the one written, directed by Dave Filoni. So likely Ahsoka. It's called The Jedi. 57-minute runtime. It's the one I think that we're all going to be looking forward to the most. So, Lunga, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this episode. I've been excited for this episode, and I think they've done beautifully building up to it. Now, like Goldman, I can say I really don't know what to expect for this episode. They can go so many directions. I have absolutely no idea. Are we going to get tons of references? Is she like going to mention this, mention that? I mean, what are we? Or they're going to do can they make too many references even? Where it's like, Jesus Christ, shut up. We don't know. So let's see how it goes. I don't even know where the story's going to go. People are speculating. Some in the chat were saying too, maybe Gideon might get her from midichlorians, and I don't think they're going to go that far with it, but. It's exciting either way, and I think it's gonna. And then, like you said too, we've seen all the previews. Everything else now is all unknown stuff that we have not seen in any trailer or snip clips or anything. So it's exciting. I can't wait to see it.
Goldman, any final thoughts?
I think this episode, besides seeing Ahsoka, I think it's really gonna give us a even better idea of how the last 3 episodes will go. I think because the rumors are that Ahsoka will only be in this episode. So unless she dies, she's gonna send Mando and presumably Baby Yoda off to do something, go somewhere. So I think after this episode, we're gonna get a lot more of the story advancing, and I think we'll have a much better vision of how the season is gonna end, which will make it easier for us, so we can predict easier. So yeah, that's what I think is gonna happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be the one that captures everyone's attention, and I'm looking forward to see how Dave Filoni does in terms of the writing department. I think he did really good directing on Chapter 1 and Chapter 5 from Season 1. I just don't think he did that well in the writing department for Chapter 5, but this is his baby. Ahsoka is someone he's dealt with as a character since the start, so I think this is right up his alley, and I'm excited and really looking forward to see what happens next. But yeah, just so you guys know, too, if you're a fan of Chatooine, around December, I think probably maybe a week or two after the last episode of Mandalorian comes out for the season, we'll probably wrap up Chatooine for maybe a month or two, maybe even 3 at the most, and call it Season 1, if you will, and just kind of take a break because we do this a lot and it's really fun, but sometimes there's not a lot to talk about. And
so
also,
much Star Wars news.
Yeah, there's only so much. I mean, it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan, but it's also not a very active time. If it's maybe in like 2022, there's going to be probably something every week because of all the shows and the movie
guys,
comes out.
Whenever we get an announcement of the next movie coming out, we'll probably be here every damn week.
Oh yeah,
it's speculating. Like an image will come out and we'll be talking about that for an hour.
Yeah, and not even including the information we'll get for the other shows. There's so many Star Wars shows coming out, and so it's probably around the time we would start up for Season 2 for Chatooine next year. Spring 2021 is when we're going to get the Bad Batch. So maybe a month before that, we'll start this up again and talk about more. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a head up on that. We have a plan to kind of take a break for the show in the future. But until then, we're still here for Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Loving it so far. Last question for both of you. Is this better than Season 1 so far? Because I'm going to go ahead and say yes.
Yes.
If we're comparing the first 4 episodes of this season to the first 4 episodes of last season, I'd say so.
All right, good.
That's a good sign. When you get better in the second season, that's
normally the sequel is where it drops off. But yeah, no, this is a lot better in my opinion. So I'm glad we're all on the same page there. But thank you guys for coming in.
people were talking about it earlier, and you put it up on your community post, which thank you, I appreciate that, guys. I didn't. You guys were talking about the games, and you were talking about the link to the Mandalore in KOTOR and stuff like that. I did a whole video on how Filoni could be drawing from Canderous Ordo and Mandalore the Preserver and everything, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So if you guys want to see some of that, if you head on over there, make it go viral. Let people see this stuff, especially if it comes true. That'd be awesome.
Awesome. I know you put up the Nerdist that apparently stolen the.
Oh yeah, man! They came up a couple days later. Came up with this whole theory. Like, it sounds a lot like mine.
yeah. I know Deadline is now notorious for stealing like credit and work and everything. They did it to your boy Andy, but that's the age we live in. But yeah, check out Lunga's video. I have his channel in the description below, so click that link for his channel and click the link for Goldman's as well. And we'll see you guys here next week on Chatooine. Thank you all for joining us. And if you want to support the show, support me, Lunga, Goldman, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to all the channels and all the videos, because it does help us out. So thank you all for joining. We'll see you all next time, and may the Force be with you always.